All right, new segment, story time. Gather round, boys and girls. First and foremost, let me say that all rights reserved. Now, this one has to do with the police, aka 12, using the resisting arrest tactic as an add-on when it comes to arresting individuals. It stands to reason that something like this could happen to different individuals out there, depending on who you run into. Just might be your lucky or unlucky night. I remember as a kid watching Menace to Society and seeing Kane and Sharif get dropped off in the wrong hood by officers for one reason or another. I felt the need to them boys. Check this out. Fair use for educational purposes.
Growing up in the hood, we were used to getting sweated by the cops. I mean, they would follow us in the car, then turn away. I mean, they'd stop us for no reason and question us, especially with a car like mine. A 5.0 on Dayton's, I knew we was in for it.
Good. Spread your legs.
Hey, man, this wood is hot.
Oh, your hands burn up, all you boys like barbecue.
Shut up.
You got a smart
Get on there.
What y'all read me my rights or something?
Shut
You know what I'm saying?
up.
Why don't you just read me my rights? I mean, they got my tags up to date, man. I got registration.
That's enough. Come on.
Just read me my rights.
You know who your master is.
Just because I'm a black man, that's why I'm a black man.
That's white, motherfucker.
That's why.
Shut the
Hey, check it out.
So,
Where's Holmes? Let's move on him, ese. Don't sweat on this.
that night, the cops let us have it. They dropped us off in the wrong hood where the essays stay. I guess they was thinking we'd get our ass kicked even more. The essays was cool, though. They took us to the hospital.
Hey, facts though. It's just something you gotta prepare for. Because you never know if you might end up in a situation like that. Now, the story I'm about to get into wasn't as heinous as what happened to Sharif and Kane, but these officers definitely were negligent and acted atrociously. As a matter of fact, this is one of the best examples that I have of what I believe gangstalking and organized harassment entails as it relates to the direct involvement of local law enforcement and the sadistic elements associated with controlled schizophrenia, which again is a real tactic that is used by law enforcement all across the United States. Shout out to the alleged gang stalkers: Officer A. Torres, badge number 45389, Officer Hernandez, badge number 44841, Officer Contreras, badge number 45702. There were a few other lame ducks that were out there that night that didn't put their name on a police report. They all work under the tutelage of City of Miami Police Chief Morales. All right, enough of the preface. Let's get straight into it. So as you can see in front of you, this took place right in front of Club Space down in Miami. And it was a night back in 2023, I want to say October. Can't remember the exact date, but that's not as important as the fact that I had been going through what I now know to be organized harassment, aka gang stalking. It had been about 2 years at that point, from what I know, maybe longer. But various groups, according to cause stalking, what they do is identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. And extremist groups use stalking to intimidate their opposition. This can involve hundreds of stalkers against a single target. They also select targets of opportunity. Groups use campaigns of organized harassment. Now, this is coming from a book that you definitely won't find. It's been scraped off the internet, but you can find maybe a synopsis, a breakdown of it. Shouts out to David P. Lawson. So because I've been ahead of this thing since day one, without really even knowing what it was, but I just knew people was acting weird around me. So I decided to move accordingly. I stepped away from the corporate sector, the legal field specifically, and started doing my own thing, moving autonomously. And truly, that's the beauty of America, man. I still believe that you can make opportunities seemingly out of nothing or even dismal circumstances, barring any sort of covert actions by various individuals to try and stop you from having that sense of autonomy. And I'm going to venture to say that I think that they're very fearful in America of a black male having autonomy and moving without handlers or someone that can sort of look into what they're doing and try and dictate and control what they have going on. And there are various ways to get this done by using the whole wink and a nod approach that white supremacy sort of fosters. As a matter of fact, just look at the picture on the screen and shout out to the Real Wealth Gallery with their artwork advocacy initiative. This picture explains what takes place. Them folks will have you feeling like persona non grata, meaning in layman's terms, ain't nobody with you. But see, I already knew this from the outset. Shout out to the great black teachers out there. We know who they are. But as a black man, you have no friends. And you have to accept that. And I accepted that a long time ago. And it's nothing personal. It's not to say that you can't make friends with people and be friendly and cordial. It's actually the exact opposite for me. I am a social butterfly, believe it or not. But I'm also very... I have a keen sense of emotional intelligence. You know, you need that along with having goals, being very goal-oriented, and having that internal drive to chase after intrinsic things. You gotta want it for yourself, not for the hoe, not for the material, not for the clout. It has to be inside of you, you heard? Constantly work on that honest feedback loop, that real feedback loop. Anyway, that's what I was on, and that's what I'm still on. That's what I'm always gonna be on. But these folks have a way of hitting you in the pockets. Organized harassment's goal is to make you destitute, destroy all the relationships you have, absolutely pulverize your self-esteem, then gaslight you into believing that it's solely your fault. And, you know, at that point, it can go down a few different paths. As you can imagine, I've talked about this a lot of times. I'm not going to mention it in this video per se, but when I say destroy, I mean it. And it comes from so many different angles, but I'm not going to get too much into that because, you know, we still want to stay positive and keep our head up. And that's precisely what I was doing on the night in question. Again, I was outside of club space, just vibing, man. Sitting in my car, enjoying the Miami nightlife, feeling like Ace Boogie from Paid in Full, reminiscing about the good old days, which really were only just a few years ago. But you know, when you've enjoyed this city thoroughly, sometimes you just want to sit back and reflect. That's exactly what I was doing until I got into a bit of a kerfuffle with the Zoman taxi driver. You see, they out here hustling, man. It's the kind of city where you got to get it. And we were having a spirited conversation about getting or giving up a parking space. In front of club space felt like some kind of weird street theater simulation. I had been thinking about that actually beforehand, but when he said that he was going to call the police, I was like, this is going to be interesting. The city of Miami Police Department had been doing the whole siren and light deal. I think that was a part of the whole organized harassment initiative. But I'm thinking to myself, you know what, man, ain't no cop coming over for some petty parking space dispute. But per the pervasive, incessant nature of gang stalking and gang stalkers, I wondered to myself how they would try to intimidate me this time. You know, I had been stopped countless times, really far too many, completely out of the norm. But part of the issues with me being stopped is that these officers would never have probable cause, and they were approaching me in a scenario in which the street theater and the actions of other drivers out on the streets would potentially induce a negative interaction because of the amount of stimulation from the blinkering, the sirens, the horn honking, the tailgating, all the dramatics that would make you feel that, hey, maybe I'm being chased or I'm being followed or I am wanted. And again, now I'm able to make sense of all these things. And I've actually developed a way to monetize it and turn their incorrigible actions into an opportunity, because I know how expansive organized harassment is, but at the time I didn't know. And so, you know, you'd have constant scenarios where you get pulled over by the police right after these things were happening, almost as if to make you interact negatively with the cops and possibly get yourself shot. I can't tell you how many times I've thanked God just for my level of poise. And again, I attribute it to knowing what organized harassment is. But if I didn't know, I could have possibly reacted negatively. And then that makes me start to think about all the individuals that don't know and that didn't know that they were being harassed and engineered, if you will, to expedite their demise. Shit is sick, man. Anyway, as far as my scenario is concerned, a couple of police officers came over, hyped up, short dudes with Napoleon complexes. One in particular seemed coked out. Anyway, they try to circumvent the Constitution, talking about some other stuff, requesting that I provide ID, playing me as if I don't know the law, and then trying to intimidate me to make me do what they wanted, just to kind of show their power, flex at that moment. Again, a simple back and forth between two individuals, civilians, and then to have an officer step in the middle of it and escalate the situation the way that he did, to the point where he then decided to yank me out of my vehicle, which, by the way, I wasn't driving. So again, there's no probable cause to stop someone in that scenario. Case law is pretty clear on that front. But he decided to pull me out of my vehicle along with the other gentleman. And while pulling me out, sure enough, takes the cowardly way out by saying, "Stop resisting." As you can see in the photo. Again, I've never experienced that, but what a weak way to just give somebody a hard time, you know? I don't believe in resisting, at least as it applies to when I'm dealing with police officers. They're just people doing their jobs. And again, I'm not anti-police. I'm pro-justice, though. And so, because I decided to inform him of the law and not really get into it, but just let him know that I'm not going to provide any sort of documentation. This isn't the 1960s, or rather Jim Crow South. So with that, he decided to play the whole, "Oh, you're resisting," and then decides to twist my arm, actually. And I state, I have a request here for the body camera that I've yet to get back. But I tell him, "Sir, you're actually twisting my arm." And I laugh. And sure enough, that was the basis for which he wrote out the ticket after the fact that actually got me sent to jail for a night. And it was nothing more than a humiliation ritual, so to speak, that the city of Miami police officers decided to participate in. He kept me in the backseat of his car for over an hour, without telling me what I'm being arrested or what I'm being detained for or what have you. At that point, it started to rain. And while all of this was going on, you got the theatrics of street theater taking place around club space. And in fact, at one point, they start rummaging through my car, going through my, everything I have in my vehicle without a warrant. Who knows why they did it, but they definitely did that. And after promising me that he wouldn't tow my vehicle, he went ahead and gave my vehicle to Roadway Towing Agency, which there's an interesting correlation and relationship between the city of Miami and that particular towing company that someone should look into. But, when it all played out and I had to go get my vehicle, it was almost as if they were surprised that my vehicle, which is a luxury vehicle, by the way, actually belonged to me. So it just appears that there are terrible assumptions that have been made based off of this pervasive organized harassment apparatus that continues to try to ruin my life. But yet it doesn't stop. No one has had the courage enough to say, hey, we can't do this to an American citizen. But it continues to play out. Again, I was held in the back seat. And while there, I recorded, or I know hopefully there was some video recording taking place in that back seat, because I'd like that to be released. And I've actually done a request for that as well, because it's within that video that I specified what was happening to me as it relates to organized harassment and case number 423CV01013, USDC Southern District of Texas, Houston Division. This thing is coordinated and it's happening, it appears, at the highest level. But that's not to say that the folks at the grassroots level, the local level, aren't culpable. They definitely are. And again, this scenario is a clear and prime example of this taking place. Now, I wanted to record this video because I've had 2 separate court hearings. Mind you, it's just one misdemeanor along with the traffic infractions. But along the way, I've been stopped countless times after that in various municipalities all throughout South Florida. Given several tickets, it would appear that they are coordinating to try to give me so many tickets that, hey, I can't pay them. And, it just, again, creates a snowball effect that inevitably leads to my destruction. So they've been giving me tickets left and right. And I actually filed a motion to dismiss in this case. And I'm going to show it on the screen here. But I'm pretty proud of that. I used to work in the legal field, as I mentioned. And if a judge were to look at it, I think I'd be in a good position. But it would appear that, and again, I'm not going to go off assumptions, but this is my judge on this particular case. But with everything that's been taking place, I just would hate that, now organized harassment is going to rear its ugly head, even within the judicial system. These are supposed to be sacred institutions. And for some reason, it's become this perverse game of, let's show him that we are playing by our own set of rules outside of the traditional rules that one would expect in the United States of America. But it would appear to be the rumblings of a railroad job. I doubt it, because again, the video proof is there. And so at some point and I don't even know if the officers have been showing up to the hearings in terms of being ready to be deposed and state what happened, because there's no justification for arresting me based off of the fact that there was no probable cause to even come and speak to me. But sure enough, he did. And I want to say this, after being held in the back of that vehicle for an hour or so, for some reason, strange reason, they called over another female officer to go and transport me to the jail down here, which I believe it's called TGK. But she, after being extremely nice, decides to play some Gangstalker organized harassment game with me by telling me, oh, we're going to send you up to the 7th floor. And she was trying to be cute, and I suspect that that's the psych ward or whatever. But just randomly, this woman decides that that's what she's going to say to me after I was a gentleman, and I'd like to get footage of me being in the back seat of her vehicle as well. But like I said, what it appears like is as if I am supposed to be under the mental control of these folks to the point where what they say and what they do should impact me and make me further go into this delusion, right? But it's not the case. I've known from the beginning what they are doing, and I keep telling them that, but they keep trying to do it. Hey, what are you going to do? Anyway, this is just one scenario. The first episode of Storytime. I got a whole bunch. We still out here, man. We still trying to be the best that we can be. We still trying to show love and help where we can. You heard? Hopefully you do the same. I'ma holler back. See ya.